Welcome to IT Alchemy. Today we are going to walk through the entire process of installing Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 on VMware Workstation. So let's get started. Before we dive into the installation step, it's crucial to make sure we have everything we need. This includes both hardware and software requirements. First, let's talk about hardware. Ensure your system supports virtualization extensions like Intel VTX or AMD 5. You will need at least 8 GB of RAM to ensure smooth performance and 20 GB of free disk to accommodate the installation. Next, let's go over the software requirement. You need to have a compatible version of VMware Workstation installed on your laptop or desktop. I have VMware Workstation 17 installed. Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 ISO is the operating system we will be installing. Make sure you have the administrative privileges on your system to manage the installation. Now let's go through a quick pre-installation checklist. Make sure you download the correct RHEL9 ISO file from the official Red Hat website. Check the ISO file's integrity using the checksum verifications to ensure that the download ISO file is intact and not corrupted. We will need to configure VMware with appropriate CPU, memory, disk, and network settings. Ensure RHEL9 ISO are mounted. Decide on a strong password and any additional users you may want to create during the installation. Set the correct time zones, language, keyboard, and these settings are needed during the installation process. Decide on the partition scheme. Choose between automatic, manual, or LVM. Plan your initial firewall and security settings to ensure your systems are secure from the get-go. Now let's see how to download the RHEL9 ISO file. Navigate to the Red Hat customer portal. Open your web browser to access.redhat.com/downloads. Ensure you have an active subscription. If you don't, then you can just create an account and log in to proceed. Let's see how to download the ISO file. Go to access.redhat.com/downloads and log in with your credentials. Navigate to the product download page and click on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. There are multiple installation images to download. Network install images for network installation, offline install images, and virtualization images. We will go with offline install images. There would be two versions, 9.4, 8.10. We'll be downloading 9.4. As you can see, it's a 10 GB file. Okay, it may take some time based on your network bandwidth and internet speed. Once the download is complete, we can move on creating the virtual machine. Open the virtual machine, click on Create a new virtual machine, and start the welcome wizard. We will now select Custom as we will have more control over the setup process, and then click Next. This window will show the compatible products and the limitation in terms of CPU, memory, etc. for VMware Workstation 17, and then click Next. Here we have the option to provide RHEL9 ISO. For now, we will select the option to install operating system later and click Next. We need to provide the type of guest operating system which we are trying to install. We will select Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 and proceed further. In this page, give your virtual machine a logical name and specify where you're going to save it. But do make sure that you have enough space on your drive. And then click Next. Assign the number of processors to your virtual machine. I will go with the default. Assign the memory to the virtual machine. I will go ahead with 6 GB of RAM, but this depends on your system capacity. And then click Next. Select the networking configurations for your VM. I will select NAT to enable the guest operating system to connect to the internet. And then click Next. Keep the I/O controller type as LSI logic and then click Next. For the disk, select the recommended NVMe, that is non-volatile memory express, which is a new type of a storage. We now create new virtual disk, so let's do that and then proceed. I will be assigning 40 GB for this virtual machine and select Store Virtual Disk as a single file and then click Next. Provide the name for the virtual disk. Now we'll see a summary page. Go through it, review your settings and click Finish the setup. Let's assign the Red Hat 9 ISO file to the CD-ROM. Click on CD-DVD device and ensure the Connected at Power On option is selected. Provide the path of RHEL9 ISO file which you have downloaded. And click OK. Now power on the virtual machine. The VMware will boot from the RHEL9 ISO and start the installation process. Once the RHEL9 ISO boots, we can either select to proceed with the installation of the Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 or perform the media check and then proceed with the install. We will select Install Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 to initiate the boot process from the ISO file. At the welcome page, choose the language. We will select English and click Continue. This window provides various options which we need to update to proceed with the install. Let's update the keyboard layout as English US. At the language selection, choose your preferred language which we have already selected as English US. Here we'll select the correct time zone to ensure accurate system time settings. Connect to Red Hat, that's optional. But if you have the Red Hat credentials, enter them to ensure you get additional features and updates. If you not, you can just leave it blank. As we have selected CD-DVD for the installation source, we will keep it as default. However, there are options to connect to the RHEL repositories. Software selection, I will opt for server with GUI installation type. This will provide me a graphical user interface for easier management. Choose the package you want to include in your installation. This is a proof of concept server, hence we are going overboard with our package selection. But in a real case scenario, you would only select the packages which are needed for you. Some of the packages which I'm going to install are FTP, file storage, network server, container management, development tools, and administration tools. But you can select based on your use case. Once you have selected all the necessary packages which you want to install, click Done. In the installation destination, we will keep it as default, but however, if you want to create different partitions, you can always create it from this page. Kdump is enabled by default. In case of a crash, it will create those dumps for further analysis. We provide the network settings, which includes IP address, host names, and other network settings. I will set the host name as italchemy.com. Within the security profile, based on the jurisdiction and the use case, we can select the profile as applicable. For now, we will just keep it as blank. Now set the root password. Decide on a strong root password to secure the administrative accounts. Create additional user as needed with appropriate permission and password. Once all the settings are configured, click the Begin Installation button to start the process. Now monitor the installation process. The installer will create necessary file system, install packages, and configure settings. This may take some time depending on your system resources. Lastly, it will install the bootloader, create the users, and run some post-installation scripts. After the installation is done, reboot the system. After the reboot, it will prompt for the first login of the user, which we created. Now let's put the credentials and login. When you log in for the first time, it will prompt for the initial tour. I will skip the initial tour for now. Let's quickly verify the installation. Open a terminal. Use the hostname command to verify the system hostname. Execute cat/etc Red Hat release command to verify the Red Hat release version. It should read Red Hat Enterprise Linux Release 9.4. You can additionally check the IP address, file system structure, and other parameters. With this, it completes the step-by-step guide for installation of Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 on VMware Workstation. Let's quickly recap what we covered today. We went over the prerequisites and the installation checklist. We downloaded Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 from the Red Hat website. We walked through the detailed steps for installation of Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 on VMware Workstation. If you have found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe for more tech tutorials. Thank you for joining us at IT Alchemy, a catalyst for your IT excellence. See you next time.